Good morning, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. I say morning, you could be watching this at any time, that's just silly. Well, I'm going to do a watercolor pencil landscape today, and I just want to kind of show you how I have my workspace set up. I've got both of my trays of Derwent watercolor pencils here, and I showed you this in a tutorial before on swatching out your colors. I think this is really important with watercolor pencils because the lead doesn't really look true to what color you have. So making a little chart and either putting your color numbers or names in the little squares and swatching out your colors makes a really big difference in how useful your watercolor pencils will be. And I did get several requests to do a watercolor pencil brand comparison. I do plan on doing that. Here I have a bucket of water, and over here is my big cup of coffee, which is only my second cup today. So there, I may be a little mellow, who knows. I'm going to start with some Prussian blue. And I am going to sketch on a stream. So what I'm going to do is just kind of get kind of like a little like S-shaped stream. And the reason I like this is that it kind of draws the viewer's eye into the scene. So you kind of already are pulled in, and that's kind of neat, I think. So then I'm also going to put just very suggestive, just a few suggestive lines of where I'm going to want my my trees on each side. You can do this with a different color if you want. I just am throwing it in here because I already have it. And then I'm just going to do a few little groups of trees here, and then I want to put some mountains here in the background, so I'm just going to just kind of sketch that in loosely. I'm kind of working from my imagination here. This is going to be a fall foliage type picture, and I have experienced painting a lot of those right from direct life living here in Maine, so that's what I'm going to do. And any pencil I use, I'm actually, I'll show you here, I do this so that I don't mess them up when I put them back. I kind of leave them overhanging the edge of my pencil box so that they're very easy to find. And now I'm just going to start kind of coloring it in. I like to get all my colors in before I actually wet anything down. So I'm going to try to figure out what color sky I want. This is, let's see, I got light blue and I have Prussian blue that I just used. I think I'm going to go with this lighter blue, and I'm just going to put in some color up here, and I think I'll just kind of put it along the top because then I'll bring it down, and I want more color towards the top than at the mountains. Now on the mountains I'm going to use some of the Prussian blue, and very lightly, just gonna, I don't want too much detail back here because these are in the background and I want them to stay pushed back. And I think I'm also going to put in a sort of a red. So why don't I go ahead and trying to think, so I want to make sure I grab a red that I'll use elsewhere in the picture. I think I will grab this Madder Carmine, and if I look at my my chart, it's kind of like a pinkier red. I'm just overlapping it here because the good thing about watercolor pencils is that they will mix. So if you have a smaller set than I do, that's fine because you can overlap your colors and they will mix. And I think I'll actually get some of this color right here in the water while I'm at it, just to kind of help cross-pollinate my color, just a little bit, a little touch of that, because that wouldn't be reflecting that far away, but the sky certainly would. So I want to make sure that I get a lot of that that sky color in my water. I'm working on rough watercolor paper, which will help me get some texture into the scene and also will help grab a lot of color off of my pencils. So that's the reason I'm doing that. Now I'm going to go in with some greens. I want to get some, this is May green, which I think, let's see, that is 48. That's a nice color. I'm going to put some of that here in the foreground. It's a nice bright warm green, so it'll help these foreground areas kind of come forward. Maybe scribble a little bit here into the tree lines. And then I'm going to go in with a darker green, a more olivey green. This is a cedar green, and I'm going to put in some bushes around here. Now notice I'm not really putting any detail in. I'm just kind of laying in some colors, and I also want to get this in some of these trees back here. So start basic because as you move through you'll add detail, and the detail is what's going to make it, give you the perspective. So you want things that are further away to be kind of fuzzy. Alright, now I want to get into some of the nice fall foliage colors. So I'm going to grab some orange chrome here, and I'm going to throw in some colors here. Again, I'm just going in with some base colors. Get some back here. No details yet, guys. We're just putting in some basic colors. I want some nice warm yellows. This is a middle chrome, which is a nice bright yellow color. Get some of this kind of in the back up near the mountains. So we really are going to need those mountains to be kind of purpley and cool, because we've got so much warm color that's going to want to come forward. So we got to make sure that we have some contrast there and some cooler colors back there. I want some red in there, so I'm going to go back in with that madder carmine and put some red in my trees. I hope I can get this done in 20 minutes. It's usually with landscapes I'd go right with paints because I want to put down lots of color at once, but this was a request, a challenge if you will, from a viewer, and I thought I'd try it because I hadn't done that before. Now if you want to make a request, I did set up a page on my blog. I don't think that's quite the right color. I want 43. Oh, it is the color I want. This is bottle green, but it's more of kind of like an evergreen color. If you do want to make a request, I set up a page on my blog. If you look under any of my videos, you'll see my blog, thefrugalcrafter.wordpress.com's address, and you can go in there and you can make requests for any videos that you would like to see. And that's where I generally will look for my requests, because I will check I'll check my YouTube comments here, there, and everywhere. I check them on my tablet, and I check them on my my laptop, and I also check them on my desktop. And I'm not always near a notebook or a pad of paper where I can write something down. So if you put your requests, I'm switching to gray here to do some rocks. I got gunmetal here. So if you put your requests on that request page on my blog, there's a much greater chance that I will get around to doing them because I look there first. So please feel free to leave your requests there. I certainly do appreciate them. It gives me lots of fun ideas, things I wouldn't necessarily try on my own, and I think that's a great way to grow as an artist, is to challenge yourself with different requests. So I'm just throwing in a few rocks here just with the gunmetal, and I can go and sketch a few shadows on them. Try to keep it loose, guys, when you're starting off, because that's how, that's, if you start getting in with really and start bogging down with a lot of detail right off the bat, it's, if you have something off and you're already putting detail in, it's very frustrating, because then when you're all done and you look at it, you're like, that's not right. What was I thinking there? You want to start broad and basic, and then you can go in with detail. In fact, you could go in with like gouache paint, which is an opaque watercolor, and you could touch up scenes, you could add highlights. You don't have to be, done once you've covered all your paper. So you can always go in with that. That's a great option. All right, and I feel like I want a little bit of a warmer green, maybe in here too. So I'm just going to throw that in. All right, so I don't feel like I have all that much color in here, but we will wet this down. We'll see what we have. I feel like I need maybe some dark brown shadows here. So I'm going to grab this burnt umber. And the nice thing about artist quality pencils is that they often use the same color names as what we get in paints, so it really helps us as far as knowing what color to pick. But what really helps us more than anything is making that color chart. I was asked about some inexpensive colors, pencils to recommend. I use mostly Derwent for my water-soluble pencils, but Karat Aquarelle, K-A-R-A-T, is a brand name. They make a really decent pencil, and it's very cheap. I don't think it's available open stock, which means you have to buy it in sets, but I think they come in a set as large as 36, and they're quite nice. I think they're probably as good as the Derwents. They just have a limited color palette, and you can't buy individual colors if you run out. So there's a good tip. I actually had a set, and I gave it to my niece because she didn't have any, and I had gotten this big set of Derwent, so I really didn't need 2 sets. As you can see, I've had these for years because it's the old color, the old style, and really they're all pretty well in good shape, and I've used them quite a bit. All right, so for my background, I'm going to use a flat brush. I think I'm going to go with a 3/4 inch flat synthetic, and I'm just dipping it in water. And you do have to kind of, you do have to kind of like wiggle your brush a bit to get the pigment to release. The Inktense pencils would be more vivid. You could use those, absolutely. I just thought I'd use regular watercolor pencils because more people just have the regular ones. Now, if at this point I see, well, I'd like to add a little more color, don't go scribbling on the wet paper. What you want to do is get your brush on the lead here. And there are some brands that say not to do this. Not the Derwents, but some brands of pencils say do not do this. and I don't know if it's actually a problem with that it will cause with that particular pencil, or if the manufacturer's just worried that people will go overboard and then end up with like cracked leads or something. I don't know, but I've never had a problem with that with these wooden case pencils. Alright, so now I've got my sky liquefied. As you can see, I'm going to bring that right down, right to the mountains, and I can even overlap them a little bit, because I don't care if it's a little fuzzy. In fact, I don't want it too crisp up there. And now I am going to liquefy my mountains. I typically don't use a really big brush when I'm working with watercolor pencils, but for like a big landscape background like this, I'm working on this is about 11 by 7, by the way, if you're wondering what size paper I'm using. I just tore it down from a large sheet of paper, and I believe this is Fabriano Rough. Alright, and I feel like that could be a little darker too, so I'm going to grab my Prussian blue and do the same exact thing I did. Oh, that's pretty. I like the way that comes right off the pencil. These colors are quite concentrated. It's not really wearing down my my pencils too much to do that. Now, if you wanted some detail, you could go in with the pencil, but I don't want detail this far away because it is mountains in the distance. I can add a little bit of that red to it. And I keep my pencils in the case in rainbow order. Not rainbow order, in color number order, so it matches up my chart, so I can really compare quickly and easily. And Derwent actually has their pencils come in rainbow order and color order, and I wish every pencil company would do that, because I find it very aggravating trying to decide, well, do I put them in color order or do I put them in numerical order? With the Faber-Castell ones, my polychromos I had, I'm like, color order, number order, what do I do? Not that I'm like very OCD, but for some reason that just bugged me. I can usually have no problems with stuff like that, but I don't know, for some reason I was just in a mood. I think it was last fall, and I was like, I want everything in order by number and color. Why can't we make this happen, people? Alright, I'm just liquefying this here. I'm still using that big brush. I find that it helps me avoid becoming too fussy. And if you hear a jingle jangle, my dog has just joined me in the studio. Well, there's only a few of us up this morning yet, and she knows that her walk is due pretty soon here. I haven't had my second cup of coffee yet, so I get through my coffee. Usually I will spend my mornings with my coffee at the computer, but I checked all my email and checked all my YouTube comments, and I still had a cup of coffee to go, which is rare. So I thought, well, time to get down there and make a new video. Probably because I didn't release anything yesterday, so I don't have as many many new comments as normal. That's alright. This is the last week of summer vacation, so I am probably going to take it kind of easy this week and get as many days in at the beach as I can and spend as much time as I can with the kids. Of course, they're winding down. I think they're ready for a change up. I don't know if they'd say they're ready for school, but I think they're kind of loafing around. Maybe it's the end of summer blues. I'm not sure. I was getting the end of vacation blues last week. I didn't want to leave. I was enjoying my cabin in the woods on the pond way too much. Alright, so I'm going to want some reflections of light on my water, kind of to show that it's moving. So I'm going to be leaving quite a bit of white in the water here. And I like to do my water before I do the surrounding banks, because I can pull that color right up to the banks. And I think I am going to want to grab a little more color off my pencils as well. I think I'm going to start doing more tutorials in this size paper. It seems to fill the screen quite well. I don't know, what would this be, an eighth? I think this would be an eighth of a sheet, because a quarter of a sheet is 11 by 14, so this would be like an eighth. So I'm just kind of grabbing. I think I'm going to switch to a smaller brush now, because I think that would be a little bit easier to control. Let's see, what do I want to work with? I think I'll work with this Aqualon by Royal brush. I love the Aqualons. They're some of my favorites. But I've also just recently got a few of the Princeton snap brushes, they're new to me. It's a brand new display at our local AC Moore, and they were very inexpensive every day of the week, and good quality for a watercolor brush, I think. I didn't use them. They're watercolor acrylics, and I think they have some oils as well. I didn't try those, but they're probably great because I have other, I do have other Princeton brushes that I've got over the years, so I haven't had a problem with any of them. I'm going to go in with some of that Prussian blue too because I feel like my water needs a little bit more darkening. And so I'm not scribbling on there because I don't want to have any marks on my paper, because once you, if you go onto wet paper with a watercolor pencil, it is not going to be liftable. It's going to stain the paper. So keep that in mind because that's a useful trick when you need it, but when you don't want it, it is it's frustrating because you can't really do much with it. That color becomes very hard to lift. Oh, I'm looking at the monitor. Sometimes I have a hard time because when I'm working here, when I'm doing a video, my camera is mounted above my my work, and my work is flat. And ideally, I like to tilt it up and work at a little bit of an angle, so I can't really see exactly how it looks with adequate, with the proper perspective. So having that monitor, it's really handy. I can look up and kind of see how it's actually looking. Now I do want to put a little bit of the colors there into the water, so I think I'm going to grab some of these brighter colors that I've used. Now the other thing to remember, now my leads are getting kind of short here because I'm using them, I've colored them down, a lot of the pigment has come off with the with coloring on the rough paper. You don't want to sharpen them while they're wet because you could damage the leads, so just make sure, that's probably one of the reasons that companies warn against that. Just make sure that your pencils are dry before you sharpen them again. I think I will do my comparison, although I don't have some of these, I don't have all the brands obviously. Once you find a brand you really like, you tend not to keep searching because they are kind of expensive. But I'll show you guys the ones that I have and what I recommend, and steer you towards those anyway, and kind of warn you from some of the ones I've tried that haven't been so hot. And you know, and also by the time that I've purchased mine quite a while ago, things change. New ones come out, and some pencils are made overseas now, and they're not as reliable. So there's all sorts of things to factor in. I probably just made everything a little bit more confusing, haven't I? Alright, I'm going to go to the rocks a bit, and I am going to use, I got the pencils out of order over here, I'm going to grab that gray, that gunmetal that I was using. I don't tend to use too much gray, so this is kind of fun. Oops, I got too much water there. Scrape off the extra water, pinch it off. That works, that seems to work really well for me. Add in some rocks here. Now with the rocks, that's going to be an excellent opportunity to use the pencil on the wet paper because I can really get a lot of detail. I think this video is going to be long. I think that I'm actually going to edit this because I can see I'm already up at 17 minutes, and I hate to rush, especially if beginners are watching. I don't want to leave them hanging and not finish a picture, or, you know, pause it and come back when I'm almost done, because I think that would probably be quite frustrating. So if I have a wet paper here, look at this. I can really put in a lot of detail. If I have a sharp pencil, I can put in even more, but I'm not going to sharpen this because I just added water to it. So I can go and add some darker pigment towards the bottom where the rocks would be wet from the stream, and they would tend to be darker. Just like that. And as I proceed, I switch to smaller brushes. Now this brush isn't really, look at that, how bendy those bristles are. That's not ideal for watercolor pencils or watercolor crayons. So I need to get a more of a shorter bristle brush. It's also called like a bright. When you have a shorter bristle brush like this, I think it's a Robert Simmons one with this. But you know, you use whatever you have. Robert Simmons does make a nice brush as well. Actually, if you have any decorative painting brushes, those will work very well for your watercolor crayons and watercolor pencils. Alright, I'm going to go back to that 1/2 inch, and I'm going to liquefy this. We're going to go long with this video. That's fine, we'll do that. That's fine. I owe you a long video because I didn't put one up yesterday. And I'll just fill this, liquefy the rest of these, the rest of this area. So we're still kind of in the underpainting stage of this. And like if I was out and about painting outside, I might just leave it at this stage because I was able to capture what I wanted to capture. But when you have the luxury of being in your studio, you can really take your time and spend as much time as you like working on this. Now I am going to go in with some pencils right on the wet paper now because I want to capture some of that detail. So I've got some bright glowing grasses here, which really aren't going to be that apparent until I put the shadowy grasses around them. But I want the really bright appearance of light, because if you've ever in the fall the air is so crisp, there's no haziness and very few clouds, and you see this really bright colors. I think that's why so many people visit New England in the fall. We just have this beautiful foliage, and the water sparkles, and it's just crisp and nice. It's really something. If you get a chance to come to New England in the fall, I highly recommend it. Columbus Day weekend is a great time for leaf peeping, but it's also crazy busy in most places. We actually went to North Conway last Columbus Day weekend to take the kids to Storyland, and it was busy. We've never been down there when it's so busy before. We had a good time, but it was very busy. Definitely want to make reservations beforehand, but you know, it was a good experience. We'd never done it before on that weekend, and it was beautiful. The White Mountains in New Hampshire, gorgeous. All right, I'm just going to throw in some chunks of the darker green. This is cedar green again. I'm going back to colors I've used already. I'm not grabbing anything new at this point. So my underpainting contains all the colors that I'm going to use in the entire painting. Oops, I need some more. Oh, and that's another thing. You can flick some color, which I think is great to do for landscapes. It just gives you a lovely texture. Because I think that paintings look best when they don't look like they've been painted, when they look like they've happened. Not that they look like a photograph, but they look like they're just comfortable and they've appeared in there, you know. You don't say, oh, look at that. You don't say, oh, look at that brushstroke they used. You said, oh, look at that beautiful scene. You know, it's kind of like a dancer works so hard to make their work look effortless. And that's the same thing with with painting. I think you want it to kind of look effortless. Now here, my brush is pretty dry. If you look at that, you can see that the hairs on my brush have kind of spread apart. So that's a great time to throw in the little grasses. So your brush is fairly dry, but it's wet enough that your paint will flow, but you can get some really nice details on little grasses that way. You can't work too long, and then so after I wet my brush, I can kind of flick on some foliage, but then I can go in when it starts to when the bristles start to spread apart, and I can pull up some grasses in the foreground because you want more detail towards the front of your picture. All right, now it's time to work on some of those trees some more. So I want to get some of those brighter colors back. And let's see, we've got some of this nice orange. And I want to be kind of painterly with it. So I'm going to start by getting my brush really loaded with it, but I'm not going to waste any. I want to make sure that if any gets flicked, it gets flicked into the right area of the trees. And I'm just dabbing on some leaves. Don't paint every little bit of the tree. You don't want it to look fussed. And I'm just going to put in some of this background foliage. Again, it's just dabbing and turning my brush. I want it fuzzy in the background and more detailed towards the foreground. All right, I want to put a few branches in there, so I'm going to go with that that brown I was using and just kind of sketch in some on that wet paper. And the benefit to this, you have to be sure that you want that there before you do it, but the benefit is that if I brush over it, that color is going to be fast stuck to that paper. It's not going to want to come off. I'm actually going to leave that pencil right there because I know I want to use it some more. A little bit more of the flicking there. I'm going to go in with some of the red. My pencils are good. And you know, a lot of times, not with this one, I obviously used a sharpener, but a lot of times I will use a knife to sharpen my watercolor pencils because I don't really desire a really fine point on it. So I'll use a knife so that I can just cut off the wood and leave all the pencil intact. So that's another thing you may want to consider, getting a woodless pencil or like an Inktense block or an art bar or something like that. I've used the Aqua Monolith, which is kind of like a cross between a watercolor crayon and a pencil. It's a little softer than your regular watercolor pencil, but it is a It's a nice woodless watercolor pencil, and the Create-A-Color, see, there's a Create-A-Color and there's Aquatone. Aquatone is the softer one. Create-A-Color, Aqua Monolith is the harder one, sorry. And there, so you're getting all, you know, pigment, and you're paying just about the same price as you would for a wooded pencil, so that's something to consider as well as far as how much pigment you get. Of course, if you sharpen it, you could end up wasting a bunch of the pigment, but what I do is if I need to sharpen it, if I need to use a sharpener and get a really fine point, I just sharpen it into a watercolor palette, an empty palette, and I save it. Save the shavings, add a little water, and I've got a cake of color. So please do that if you end up getting those pencils, so you don't waste your precious supplies. Not that they're so precious. I don't want to call them precious because I don't want you to think they're precious. I can't use them. I mean they're precious as in, you know, you want to make sure you get your money's worth. You want to make sure you use them. All right, going in with this yellow we used before, this Naples Yellow, again with the splashing. And these and any little flicks of color you get end up looking kind of like some colors that have some leaves that are kind of like on the outskirts of a tree, which I like. I like that look. Now I think we could probably even use a toothbrush with this technique if I have one, or a stiff oil painter brush would probably be better because I won't waste so much. Yeah, go in with that stiff oil painter brush, and that will just remove quite a bit of color and give us a nice big burst, and I can even stipple on with that. And then we need to add some greens in as well, so we get that nice contrast between the evergreens and the fall colors. All right, I hope you're still with me. I hope I haven't bored you out of your gourd this morning. I know we're 26 minutes in here. All right, so we want some greens, and I'm going to use this cedar green, which we have used before. And I think again I'm going to go in with my angled brush because I feel like I'm not going to get too fussy with that. And just kind of tap in these trees back here. Now, you might be thinking, well, okay, so we're not adding any new colors, right? But, you know, I don't know if that's quite dark enough, Lindsay. That's looking kind of pale. How is that going to give us the contrast? Well, remember we use Prussian blue. Prussian blue is a greenier blue. So let me go in here and add some details with this, and if it's not dark enough, I will add some Prussian blue to it. But what I really like is that I can kind of get these little treetops in here, not add a ton of detail, but I'm adding enough that I really don't need to add too much more than this. Does that make sense? I hope so. And I'm expecting you to answer me, of course, when I ask you these questions. So if you're talking to yourself, you're not the crazy one, it's me. I'm just expecting you to answer me. We drove to Belfast yesterday. That was nice. You know, squeezing every little bit of summer in. If you've ever been to Belfast, you know about Perry's Nut House. So we went to Perry's Nut House, which when I was a kid, that was just, oh, Perry's Nut House was just the best thing ever. Best thing ever. And I always got a kick out of, like, I was convinced they had a real mummy there. You know, it's funny looking at this as an adult. After loving it, going there as a child, you're like, oh my gosh, that's obviously not a real Egyptian mummy they have in their store, or a, you know, it might be a real alligator, I'm not sure, but they have, like, you know, bizarre stuffed things that have been there since I was a little kid, which I'm pretty sure mostly are fake. And they sell novelty things like, you know, fart powder and, you know, pepper gum, and it's just, you know, it's a kid's emporium of curiosities. The kids love it. We go every year. They have a big candy counter, and they make homemade fudge, and it's just it's quite a destination if you're visiting Maine. If you're on the coastal Maine area, it's Perry's Nut House in Belfast. So we went there yesterday, and we went down to the Belfast City Park where they have a lovely playground, and it's right on the ocean. And we spent the day there. We brought the dog. She is now our water dog, and anytime she sees the water now, she is compelled to whine if she can't get in it. So I don't know what I'm gonna do about her. She's getting some mats, and we can't seem to brush them out. So we're gonna have to get out the trimmers, but that's all right. She's having a good time. I didn't think she was such a water dog until we spent our week up at the cabin, and she just spent every moment in the water. It was so funny. This was the other green we were using, this bottle green, and you can dip the tip into the water if you want. And I'm doing that just to give a little bit of darker foliage down there. I still think I like the dipping the brush better. Let's go back to that method. And I think we're going to be using a little bit of Prussian blue to darken that up a bit. But I do like the texture that gives. I'll put a few more evergreens in here. The Pine Tree State, Maine, the Pine Tree State. The Pine Tree State bird is the black-capped chickadee, although locals will say it's the mosquito. However, this year it has not been very buggy. So if you were able to visit us this year, you'll notice that we didn't have a lot of mosquitoes or black flies, but we've had a lot of dragonflies, and someone pointed out that it's because we have all the dragonflies that we don't have so many mosquitoes this year. So thank you, dragonflies. I'm very, very pleased with that. Alright, so I'm just, adding as I feel it needs it. Maybe a little more brighter green up here to come forward. Your warmer greens will advance. Cooler colors recede. Remember that. It's just a little, it's true, and you'll notice that with observing things. Oh, observing? Why did I say it like that? Observing things, but it's also great to, to know if your picture's not happening or if it looks flat. Then, think, okay, I need some warmer colors in the front, need some cooler colors in the back. That'll help it look realistic. All right, definitely need some little green. I think I'm gonna maybe sketch on some branches, just something here. It's just looking a little dull. And then I'm gonna go in with a few little branches here. You don't have to be specific, you just need to put a few things in there sometimes just to give it that definition you need. And I think we're just about done here, actually. I need something along these. I think I need some pebbles there. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to grab my flat brush. I'm really liking the 1/2 inch angular for this landscape and colored pen in the watercolor pencils. I think because it is it's allowing me to cover a little more area. I kind of wonder if I was doing this in regular watercolors, how long would it have taken me? Probably not as long, but it would have been a different look. Probably wouldn't have been as detailed. I'm putting pebbles on the shore here. Maybe a few over here. Can add some more now if I want. I'm trying to decide on that, whether I want to do that or not. Darkening the bottom of my rocks. So the nice thing about the watercolor pencils is that you can add a little bit at a time. You don't have to, it's probably a little bit less intimidating. I'm adding a little bit of this rock color around the edge just to kind of put a reflection in the water. Just a little bit, because the water is moving. It's a stream. I like this gunmetal color because it's a nice neutral gray. Maybe leaning a little bit to purple actually, but it is quite neutral, so I can put it into this water and it doesn't look out of place, especially with the mountains. Oh, I think my tummy's grumbling. I haven't had breakfast yet. Oh, there we go. Add some color in there. I have a routine. I have to have my coffee first. 2 cups of coffee, 2 bowls of coffee. Okay, let's just be honest here. You know what size cups my coffee cups are. But look at how that really carves some definition in just using that gunmetal. Now, if I was using traditional watercolors, I probably wouldn't use gray unless I was painting out in the field and I really just needed, quick values. You need to get those dark values in quickly. So that's another reason, when you switch mediums, you kind of change it up a little bit. And then I think all I have left to do is sign my name. So what I'm going to do is actually grab that nice sharp red colored pencil and put that in. And down here, whoops, you can see it's a little crumbly. And because I have a deckled edge paper, I would mount this, because I've torn this down from a sheet of, handmade watercolor paper, and I would mount this probably on like a gray panel, something on matte board that looked nice with these colors, and then I would do a matte and leave like a little bit of a reveal, maybe like a 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch reveal around the outside, so it would really pop out, but I'd still get to keep that deckled edge, which I think I don't know, I like the look of it, but if you don't like that, you could always make your mat a little bit smaller and pull it in that way. But there you have it. It's a watercolor pencil landscape by request. Please give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you like this video, and until next time, happy crafting.